Now, the Permanent Okavango River Basin Water Commission, or OKACOM, is a river basin organization established by the three riparian states of Angola, Botswana, and Namibia. Established in 1994, OKACOM's work is advisory in nature, guided through meetings of the Commission and the Okavango Basin Steering Committee, and informed by the technical advice of its task forces and special advisors. While joining me with more on the Commission as well as the oil and gas exploration activities in the basin is Executive Secretary Mr. Pera Ramweli. Mr. Ramweli, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning to you, sir. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, indeed. Firstly, what is the mandate of the Permanent Okavango River Basin Water Commission?
Well, as established by the three member states in 1994, our main mandate is to advise the three states on the conservation, development, and sustainable utilization of the resources of the basin. And this we achieve through through activities that assist the member states to make informed decisions on the utilization and ensuring that they sustain the status of the basin individually and collectively through principles which they themselves would have agreed to, including making sure that no harmful effects are done to the basin to affect either one or all of the member states.
Indeed. Now, Mr. Ramweli, of course, we know that one of the biggest activities happening in the basin right now is, of course, the oil and gas exploration. And your organization organized a council meeting looking at the explorative activities in Namibia and Botswana, respectively. Firstly, what prompted this meeting and what were the key outcomes?
Well, basically, as an advisory body, and we learned about this ongoing or planned exploratory activities, the council felt it is important that the three of them sit together and jointly discuss what is it that is exactly happening and what adverse impacts might come as a result of this, basing themselves on the shared vision of the basin, which is looking at economically prosperous, socially just, and environmentally healthy development of the basin. Yeah. And therefore felt they should sit together and understand exactly what's going on, as unfortunately this thing came out quite explicitly in the media. And some of the outcomes of that meeting was they formulated their standpoint and a position as a commission, some of which was them reiterating their commitment to avoid any environmental impacts as a collective and assist each other in sharing information relating to this. As an example, they also issued a press release, which I'm sure you are also associated, the organization has also received, and on the basis of which they actually highlighted what they would want to see happen. A part of their decisions was that they have agreed that for these activities to take place, there should be approved environmental impact assessment reports, and which this should precede any subsequent stages in the exploration work. And if at any one point during the process there's found to be threats to the integrity of the basin, they as countries could and will take decisions to either suspend or stop these activities, or find ways to ameliorate or deal with what might be adverse impacts. So they have taken up upon themselves to actually do this.
Fantastic.
One of the things that they also undertook to do was, as based on their notification, consultation, and negotiation principles, to encourage or rather agree as member states that those with or on whose territories these activities are taking place should avail information to to the other member states so that, as a rule, this can determine whether or not there will be adverse impacts. As it is now, we are in consultations with Namibia,
yes,
where most of this has quite advanced. The work has advanced in Namibia in terms of them sharing information with the other member states.
Yep.
In Botswana, obviously, work is very preliminary. They are just discussing, and they are still to undertake requisite studies that will determine whether or not they get a license to actually start the exploratory work. And this will be based on the outcomes of such studies.
Fantastic. Mr. Romele, just speaking of Namibia, you recently undertook a visit to the Recon Africa site in the Kavango East region. What was the objective of that visit and what were the findings? Are you pleased with how things are being done?
Well, we undertook this vision indeed, mainly to find out and hear from the company and be informed of what exactly they are doing in terms of their processes and at what stage they are at this point. And they made a presentation to us which was indicating their full processes as to what they are undertaking. And we were able to also see what they were at that time doing, which they informed us that they had finished a stratigraphic borehole which they are doing to gather data and information to determine whether or not there is possibilities of hydrocarbons in that area. We are not mandated to either confirm or otherwise, and the visit was too short for us. It wasn't an inspection per se. We were listening to what they were going to give us, and of course observing as we were there. And we found out that they were operating and they were able to open to us in terms of what they were doing and presenting to us the steps they've been taking in respect of their work.
Yeah. Is this part of the Commission ensuring that member states adhere to key principles?
Oh, indeed. Although we are not a policing body, we are an advisory body.
Yeah.
Our intention is really to gather information so that when we advise, it's based on legitimate and substantiated information. And of course, we are the requisite institution that deals with and manages the management documents that the countries would have agreed to, including the agreement and the guidelines that they have adopted that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Ramweli, in order to avoid harm to other riparian states, the Council has advised that each member state would submit relevant information to other member states within the basin. How important is this, and what channels, apart from your Commission, exist for such communication here?
Indeed, this is very important because it's also in line with the SADC Protocol on Shared Water Courses, Article 4C, which deals with communication and information on planned measures. It is important because if this is not done, countries might find themselves undertaking programs and development unilaterally. Yeah. And then when the processes are taking place, it is found out that the other countries are negatively affected. Yeah. So it is very critical that the countries that share a river basin like the three states are at any one given time for all activities that might have harmful adverse impacts on the others, they should inform. The guidelines that I mentioned earlier stipulate the respective processes on how this is done. Yep. And this is what is guiding the countries in terms of what type of information, when it should be submitted, and what will be the expected response from the notified state in respect of this activity. And according to the protocol, the notified state will normally have to give and take 6 months to inform themselves of whether, and even have a possibility of further asking further clarifications on this. Yep. So indeed, the Secretariat is the conduit within which this information will be submitted to the other member states, so that it's done in a pragmatic and relatively impartial manner.
Furthermore, what is the time frame and frequency for submission of such information, and how big a factor is the varying stages of these explorations in the various nations? As you mentioned, in Botswana, it is really in its preliminary phases, as opposed to here in Namibia, where we're well advanced into the exploration activities here.
The underlying principle here is that countries should freely share available information. And this available information depends on at what stage the country is at in terms of implementing such an activity. And this information would include EIA reports, even plans if those are in place, so that the other countries can study this and determine whether or not they are going to be affected. So it is, in fact, very important at what stage the development is, because they can only be able to give information that is available. And as you can obviously then understand, Namibia has advanced quite a bit in their work, and therefore there is already an available information which they have already shared with the other member states, even prior to this decision being made, including some of the EIA reports that have been communicated, or rather produced. So indeed, it is very critical in terms of timing, but obviously it depends on when and at what time the development is. And for this type of work, which is currently fact-finding or information gathering with not specific determinable adverse impacts that could be seen, the countries are able to now give their respective EIAs that are preceding each step in the process.
Mr. Ramwele, just for interest's sake, what is the role of or the involvement of Angola in all of these developments, and really what is Angola's standpoint as a member to this basin?
Angola, being an upstream country and being a member of OKACOM, participates in this equally as the other member states. In fact, Angola may potentially also want to do some exploration for oil or gas, which is currently they are doing offshore. They will be probably looking at doing some of this onshore, and therefore they are equally interested and they are equally involved in making sure that whatever happens, even though they are upstream, would not affect the other countries. So in the meeting that the council had, they all participated in that meeting and agreed to all the decisions that were taken. And they agree as a principle that it is important for the three countries to undertake their activities jointly. That's why they agreed that information will have to be shared between and amongst the three of them.
Thank you for that. Mr. Ramwele, I'm sure you are privy to the local and global international concerns around these exploration activities. Just as the environmental integrity of this basin, concerns around the environmental integrity of this basin remains, what words of assurance do you have here?
Well, I can only reiterate the fact that as a Commission, we have committed through the member states that their principle of upholding the integrity of the basin as espoused in their shared vision and as enunciated in the various instruments. And they are undertaking now to ensure that all activities that takes place in the basin are environmentally sound. We are confident that they will undertake their due responsibility and due diligence to ensure that the basin remains unaffected adversely. And remember, for instance, for Botswana, which houses or holds the delta, this is also an international icon that is looked at very strongly, and therefore it's in the interest of the countries concerned to ensure that they preserve this and it remains unaffected by the development. What the countries do believe is that they still need to develop the resources for the benefit of their people. However, this should be done within an environmentally safe and environmentally conscious and justified manner.
Very much indeed. Just before we round up the discussion this morning, just what does the itinerary look like in terms of activities in relation to this oil and gas explorations here?
Well, this can also be confirmed by the respective countries, but to the far as we are aware, the work in Namibia has now finalized the stratigraphic process, and they'll be going into the 2D seismic processes. And therefore, based on that, we are expecting them to give us more information as they get the information. And of course, this will come through the member state consent, and will be informed accordingly from that country. As a commission, we are, as I indicated, in the process of finalizing some of the processes to inform the other member states in relation and in line with the guidelines that are set in place.
Fantastic. Apart from the oil and gas exploration within the basin, what are the other activities of your commission, sir?
Oh, yes. I mean, the commission is undertaking a number of activities, including strategic studies such as the environmental impact assessment at the regional level, which we are currently undertaking. We are doing a number of programs that looks at the assessment of groundwater, for instance. We are also looking at the prospects of payment for ecosystem services. That is an exercise that we are currently undertaking. Those are to also inform member states on what actions they need to take in order to ensure that the communities in the first instance benefit from the activities in the basin.
Mr. Pera Ramwele, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and all the best with your work at the Commission here.
Thank you very much, and you're welcome, sir.
There you have it, Mr. Pera Ramwele. He is the Executive Secretary of the Permanent Okavango River Basin Water Commission, or OKACOM, if you will, just telling us more about this riparian organization and its activities in the nations of Angola, Namibia and Botswana, with more focus on the oil and gas exploration in Namibia and Botswana, specifically stating that, of course, the oil and gas exploration activities in Botswana are at the preliminary phase, as opposed to Namibia, who is well advanced with the oil and gas exploration. Furthermore, just ensuring the public that, of course, OKACOM is making sure that member states do follow the necessary processes to make sure that the environmental integrity of the basin is secure and sound, and that, of course, this is done in a sustainable manner. To stay with us.